Before we dive into the story, a small request, please subscribe to our channel. That would help me a lot. Now let's begin the story. The heavy silence in the dimly lit living room was suffocating. Rebecca, my wife of 5 years, sat across from me on the worn couch, her fingers fidgeting with her wedding ring. Her eyes darted around the room, avoiding my gaze, as if searching for an escape route. "Mark," she finally said, her voice trembling slightly, "I need to be honest with you." A knot formed in the pit of my stomach, and I braced myself for the impact of her words. "I'm not attracted to you anymore," she confessed, her eyes finally meeting mine. Those 5 words hit me like a freight train, knocking the wind out of my lungs. A dull ache settled in my chest, and I fought back the tears that threatened to spill. Rationally, I knew this was a possibility. Ever since the birth of our second child, Lily, our once vibrant intimacy had taken a back seat to sleepless nights and diaper changes. "But you love me, right?" I croaked, my voice cracking with vulnerability. Rebecca's eyes welled up with tears, and she reached across the coffee table to take my hand in hers. Her thumb caressed my knuckles gently. "More than anything," she assured me, her voice thick with emotion. "But I need sex, or I'll go crazy." The concept of an open marriage had never crossed my mind. As Rebecca explained the idea, a whirlwind of emotions swirled within me. Curiosity battled with my deep-rooted insecurities, while a growing sense of desperation gnawed at my gut. Could this unconventional arrangement be the answer? A way to explore new avenues while keeping our core, our family, intact? "Are you sure about this?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Rebecca nodded, her expression a mix of determination and uncertainty. "I don't know if it will work, but we have to try something. I can't keep going like this." We discussed boundaries, rules, and the inherent risks, our voices hushed as if we were conspiring. It felt like a dance of vulnerability, a rewiring of a fundamental part of our marriage. Rebecca dove in headfirst, her eyes alight with a newfound excitement as she set up dates and embraced her newfound freedom. She would tell me everything, showing me pictures of her dates with a strange mix of excitement and insecurity in her voice. Me? I felt adrift, a spectator in my own life. Every time I mustered the courage to venture out, a wave of possessiveness would crash over me, drowning out the tentative sparks of curiosity. But seeing Rebecca, vibrant and alive again, gave me a push. It started with innocent flirting at my usual coffee shop. The barista, a young woman with eyes that sparkled with laughter, would linger a little longer than necessary whenever I placed my order. Our exchanges became more playful, punctuated by lingering glances and sly smiles. One morning, I gathered the courage to ask for her number. She scribbled it on a napkin, her cheeks flushed with a hint of excitement. "I'm Mark, by the way," I said, tucking the napkin into my pocket. "Emily," she replied, her smile radiant. We exchanged numbers, a tentative beginning to an unknown journey. Then came the Friday night fiasco. Rebecca had a date with a client, and I had planned a rendezvous with Emily. As I was getting ready, my heart pounding with a mix of anticipation and guilt, Rebecca called. "Mark, I'm so sorry," she said, her voice frantic. "I'm stuck at work. Can you watch the kids?" This became a recurring theme. Whenever I planned something, an emergency would arise on her end. The frustration bubbled over, a silent war playing out in stolen glances and clipped conversations. Last Monday, a sudden break in my schedule presented itself. Emily was free, and the daycare had a vacancy. I seized the opportunity, the stolen afternoon a whirlwind of rediscovered desire that left me exhilarated. Guilt tugged at the edges, but the affirmation, the feeling of being desired, was intoxicating. Telling Rebecca that night was a mistake. "You broke the rules," she accused, her voice tight with betrayal. But the accusation felt hollow, considering her own recent behavior. That night, however, took a drastic turn. Rebecca woke me up, her touch gentle, a silent plea for forgiveness. We made love 3 times, a frantic attempt to recapture lost intimacy. Since then, sex has been a nightly occurrence. Now, she claims to be attracted to me again, urging me to close the marriage. But the world has shifted. The taste of freedom and the knowledge of other options linger. I don't see how an open marriage has hurt us. In fact, it seems to have reignited a spark in both of us. I just don't know if I'm ready to give up the newfound possibilities. The days that followed were a whirlwind of conflicting emotions. Rebecca's sudden shift in attitude left me reeling, unsure of how to navigate this new landscape we found ourselves in. On one hand, the idea of closing the marriage felt like a betrayal of the newfound freedom I had tasted. The knowledge that there were other options, other possibilities beyond the confines of our relationship, was intoxicating. But on the other hand, the thought of losing Rebecca, the woman I had vowed to love and cherish, was almost too much to bear. One evening, as we sat down for dinner, the tension between us was palpable. The kids, blissfully unaware of the turmoil brewing beneath the surface, chatted animatedly about their day. "Mark," Rebecca said, her voice cutting through the chatter, "we need to talk." I met her gaze, my heart pounding in my chest. "Okay, I think we should close the marriage," she stated, her tone leaving no room for argument. "But why?" I countered, trying to keep my voice steady. "Things have been better between us, haven't they?" "Yes, but—" Rebecca trailed off, her eyes darting to the kids before lowering her voice. "I can't keep living like this. The constant worry, the fear of losing you to someone else, it's tearing me apart." "You won't lose me," I assured her, reaching across the table to take her hand. She pulled away, shaking her head. "You can't promise that. Not anymore." The hurt in her eyes was like a dagger to my heart. I wanted to argue, to convince her that we could make this work, but a part of me knew she was right. The open marriage had opened a Pandora's box of emotions, and there was no going back. "Okay," I conceded, my voice barely above a whisper. "We'll close it." But even as the words left my lips, a part of me rebelled against the decision. The taste of freedom, the thrill of the unknown, lingered like a siren's call, beckoning me to explore further. In the days that followed, Rebecca seemed to relax, her shoulders no longer weighed down by the burden of constant worry. She was more affectionate, more present, and our intimacy blossomed once again. But for me, the itch remained. I found myself replaying my encounters with Emily in my mind, the memory of her touch searing into my skin, the temptation to reach out to her, to experience that rush of desire once more, was almost overwhelming. One night, as Rebecca slept peacefully beside me, I found myself scrolling through our text conversation, my thumb hovering over the call button. It would be so easy, a simple tap of the screen, and I could hear her voice again. But something held me back, a nagging sense of guilt, a fear of shattering the fragile peace we had found. Days turned into weeks, and the itch grew stronger. I became more distant, more withdrawn, unable to shake the feeling that I was missing out on something. Rebecca noticed the change, her brow furrowing with concern whenever she caught me lost in thought. "Mark, is everything okay?" she would ask, her voice laced with worry. "Yeah, everything's fine," I would lie, forcing a smile that never quite reached my eyes. But the truth was, I wasn't fine. I was torn between two worlds, two desires that seemed increasingly incompatible. Then, one fateful day, the opportunity presented itself. I was at the coffee shop, my usual spot, when Emily walked in. Our eyes met, and for a moment, time seemed to stand still. She approached me, a tentative smile playing on her lips. "Hey, stranger," she greeted, her voice sending a shiver down my spine. "Emily, hi," I stammered, trying to regain my composure. We made small talk, catching up on the mundane details of our lives, but the tension between us was electric. I could sense her curiosity, her desire to know why I had disappeared from her life. Before I knew it, the words tumbled out. Rebecca wanted to close the marriage. Emily's eyes widened, her expression a mix of surprise and understanding. "And you went along with it?" I nodded, unable to meet her gaze. "But that's not what you really want, is it?" she pressed, her voice soft yet insistent. In that moment, everything came crashing down around me. The weight of my decision, the sacrifices I had made, hit me with full force. I had given up my freedom, my desires, for the sake of a marriage that seemed increasingly fragile. No, I admitted, my voice thick with emotion. It's not. Emily reached out, her hand grazing my arm in a gesture that felt both comforting and electrifying. You don't have to live like this, Mark. You have a choice. And just like that, the dam broke. Emily's words cut through the haze of guilt and indecision that had been clouding my mind for weeks. Her hand on my arm felt like an anchor, grounding me in a sea of conflicting emotions. In that moment, the weight of the decision I had made, to give up my newfound freedom for the sake of preserving my marriage, felt suffocating. I can't, I began, but the words caught in my throat. Emily's eyes were filled with understanding, with a depth of emotion that left me breathless. You don't have to explain anything to me, Mark. I get it. And with those simple words, the dam broke. The pent-up frustration, the longing I had been suppressing, came pouring out in a torrent of raw honesty. I told her everything, the constant itch, the feeling of being trapped in a life that no longer felt like my own. Emily listened intently, her gaze never wavering, offering me a safe haven to unburden my soul. By the time I had finished, I felt lighter, as though a weight had been lifted from my shoulders. Emily reached out, her fingers intertwining with mine, and in that moment, the world around us seemed to fade away. "What are you going to do?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. I took a deep breath, my mind racing with possibilities. "I don't know," I admitted, "but I can't keep living like this." Emily nodded, her thumb tracing soothing circles on the back of my hand. "Whatever you decide, I'm here for you." Those words resonated deep within me, offering a glimmer of hope in the midst of the turmoil. With a newfound determination, I knew what I had to do. When I returned home that evening, Rebecca could sense the change in me immediately. Her brow furrowed with concern as she took in my pensive expression. "Mark, what's going on?" she asked, her voice laced with worry. I took a deep breath, steeling myself for the conversation that was about to unfold. "We need to talk." Rebecca's eyes widened, and she nodded, gesturing for me to continue. "I can't do this anymore," I blurted out, the words tumbling from my lips in a rush. "I can't keep pretending that closing the marriage was the right decision." Rebecca's face fell, her expression a mix of hurt and anger. "What are you saying?" she demanded. "I'm saying that I need my freedom," I replied, my voice steady despite the turmoil raging within me. "I need to be able to explore this new world we've opened up without the constraints of a traditional marriage." Rebecca recoiled as if she'd been slapped, her eyes filling with tears. "But you promised," she choked out. "You said you were okay with closing it." "I know, and I'm sorry," I said, reaching out to take her hand. She pulled away, her body rigid with tension. "But I was lying to myself and to you." The ensuing argument was explosive, a maelstrom of hurt and betrayal that threatened to tear us apart. Rebecca accused me of breaking my vows, of disrespecting our marriage and our family. And in a way, she was right. But I couldn't deny the truth that had been staring me in the face for weeks. "You knew nothing about open marriage," she shouted, her face flushed with anger. "You're the one who lost interest in me first. You're the one who wanted this." Her words struck a chord deep within me, and I found myself fighting back with equal ferocity. "That's not fair, Rebecca. You were the one who brought this into our lives. You're the one who couldn't handle the consequences." We hurled accusations back and forth, each one cutting deeper than the last, until we were both spent, our voices hoarse and our faces streaked with tears. In the end, the decision was made: we would divorce. The idea of salvaging our marriage, of finding a way to reconcile our vastly different needs and desires, seemed impossible. The weeks that followed were a blur of lawyers and paperwork, of dividing our assets and our lives. The children, caught in the crossfire of our crumbling relationship, were understandably confused and hurt. But through it all, I couldn't shake the feeling that I had made the right choice. As painful as the process was, I knew that continuing to live a lie would have been even more damaging in the long run. On the day our divorce was finalized, Rebecca and I sat across from each other, a table laden with legal documents separating us. Her eyes were red-rimmed, her expression a mix of sadness and resignation. "I hope you're happy," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I hope this newfound freedom was worth it." Her words stung, but I knew she was lashing out from a place of hurt. I nodded, unable to find the words to express the whirlwind of emotions swirling within me. As I walked out of the courthouse, the weight of our failed marriage lifted from my shoulders. It was a bittersweet feeling, tinged with sadness and regret, but also a sense of relief. In the weeks and months that followed, I embraced my newfound freedom with equal parts trepidation and excitement. Emily was a constant source of support, offering a listening ear and a shoulder to lean on whenever I needed it. And while a part of me will always feel a twinge of guilt for the way things ended with Rebecca, I know in my heart that I made the right choice. The open marriage may have started as her idea, but in the end, it was a journey we both embarked on, for better or for worse. And now, as I navigate this new chapter of my life, I find solace in the knowledge that I am living my truth, unapologetically and without regrets. This is where our story comes to an end. Share your thoughts in the comments section. Thanks for your precious time. If you enjoyed this story, then please make sure you subscribe to this channel. That would help me a lot. Click on the video you see on the screen, and I will see you there.